Dr. Michaela Albertson, thanks for coming back to continue this great conversation on hormones and body image.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so we talked about cycles and things start to get a little crazy at midlife, right? So let's talk about let's just start with the basics. So, what is going on with my hormones as I reach midlife, as I reach my 40s into my 50s, or even for some, I guess that's late 30s, but what's happening?
Yeah. Well, I kind of like to compare perimenopause to puberty a little bit. And we talked about that in the last episode, that there's a lot of hormonal chaos going on there. And instead of our ovaries practicing starting working like they are in puberty and having a regular cycle, right? We're sort of practicing not working as well, or kind of on their way out a little bit. And so we have a lot of fluctuation and hormonal chaos in this perimenopausal time as well. So there may be cycles that seem pretty normal, and maybe a few in a row even. And then every once in a while, you might have a wacky one in there, or even have a skipped period in there. That's kind of one of the first hallmark signs of perimenopause, is that the menstrual cycle changes.
Mm.
And often what we realize in our later 30s or early 40s is we're still having regular monthly cycles, but maybe the time between them has shortened a little bit, or maybe the cycle is the actual period can be a little bit longer or heavier. And so they might still be monthly and regular and mostly predictable, but they are different than what you had in your
Mhm.
20s and 30s.
Yeah. I've heard it described as crime scene periods.
Well, yeah, that's a good way to put it. I have a
Yeah.
friend. I have a friend who texted me a meme of like the bloody Carrie from that Stephen King movie, where she's just bloody. She's like, "This is what's happening over here." So it made me laugh. But yes, that's true. Often really heavy bleeding, and I think that's when I would start seeing women in clinic, is when they're like, "What is going on with my period? Something has to be wrong."
Yeah. So, okay, the hormones all have different roles, right? Is it all three of them working together beautifully in unison that helps me feel good? Or is it so let me give you my theory and you can tell me where I'm wrong. Okay, so what I've noticed is um estrogen decline has had its impact for sure with oh goodness, like all of a sudden not being able to sleep. And I've been like, I'm a champion sleeper, like napper, like sleep was never an issue for me. And it's like, what in the world? Like, this is not me. I sleep. So that's been a problem. But and then like, getting the progesterone balance that helped a little bit at first, but then I think as my estrogen started to drop more, that just like wasn't enough. But then it feels like testosterone, so like the day that I feel good is the day that this is probably too embarrassing to share on the show, but I'm just going to go ahead and share it. Like I know that my testosterone is like back or up or whatever because I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have like a new chin hair or two. I'll be like, oh, testosterone, there you are. No wonder I feel so good today. So, which of these hormones are making me feel better, or is it really just all of them in the right
Yeah,
levels?
I think they all play a role, and I think we're still learning. So I will
Okay.
say that I think there's this belief out there that we like know exactly how everything's working. We've got it all figured
Mhm.
out, and like what aren't they telling us, or what?
Yeah.
But I think the studies have been lacking, and we need more studies for women specifically around this perimenopause time. And so
Mhm.
we have some good studies about estrogen. And I think that sometimes the hype of testosterone and other hormones is sort of outpacing what we actually know with
Okay.
science, or what we can back up. And so I think there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there. And
Mhm.
may be some truth to that, but we can't definitively say that yet.
Yeah.
And so estrogen is the one we talk about the most, and I think is kind of the biggest player. We have estrogen receptors everywhere. And when we're giving menopausal hormone therapy, we're giving estrogen. The progesterone seems to kind of be the side guy a little
Mhm.
bit. It can help a little with mood and with sleep. But the main reason we're giving progesterone when we're doing replacement therapy or hormone therapy is to help protect the uterus
Mm.
because we can't give estrogen by itself.
Okay.
And so, does it have effects? Yes. But I think estrogen seems like the main player with a
Mhm.
lot of the symptoms that we're experiencing in perimenopause.
Yeah.
And then testosterone is really huge for libido. And again, I think we're behind on our studies for
Mm.
that. And maybe we're being sold some information that sounds promising. There may be some anecdotal evidence out there or some really small scale studies. But right now, testosterone is indicated primarily for libido,
Mm.
even though it's being advertised for some other things. I think the
Yeah.
science has a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah. Okay. So appreciate everything you just said. So let's go two different directions. Direction
Okay.
one, hormone hacking. I mean, that is hashtag hormone hacking everywhere. And I'll be honest, like I am the woman in your book that has the drawer full of supplements. Like you
Yeah.
actually, I don't want to give away that part of your book. It was really good. That and at first it was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to talk to her because we just disagree. And then I read what
Yeah.
you wrote and I was like, oh, dang, you're right. You are so right. So you really helped me on that front. But I feel like there is this Instagram slash YouTube philosophy that it's I mean it's the same thing. It's the same as diet culture, right?
Hmm.
It's just wellness culture 2.0 like called hormone
Yep.
hacking. It's if you do something perfectly, if you just find the right combination of things, then you're going to hack your hormones and then you are going to be amazing. The weight's going to melt off. That's always the promise. The weight's going to melt off and you're just going to feel fabulous like you did in your 20s. Like, what do you think about all that?
Hard. I have so much, I could have 3 hours on that probably. And it's frustrating, I think. And I have been sold it as well. And I have believed a lot of it as well. And gosh, you guys, I want that to be true. I
Mhm.
want what they're selling me. I
Mhm.
get that someone sells you something and says, this is it, this is the answer, this is what they don't want you to know. And just do this, take this, follow this plan, take these supplements, and you're going to feel great. And I want that. I want that to be true, but it just isn't. And we
Mhm.
don't have the science for it. And I think there is a lack of scientific research, especially around perimenopause. And what has happened is marketers and people who want to sell things and make money have jumped on the gap and said, oh, we've got something for you. And they've decided, like, how can we market this? And really what it is exploitation, I think.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
is noticing these pain points in women, noticing where we're struggling, noticing how we struggle with body image and our weight and how we're feeling and the fatigue and the brain fog and these changes that are coming, and saying, how can we make money off that?
Yeah.
Not how can we help them? And many people probably have a good heart for it. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that people who, they want it to be true too. They want
Right.
to help you and make a little money on the side. But I do think that the science is important.
Yeah.
And I do think that we deserve good science
Yeah.
and we deserve safety studies and efficacy studies. And we want to put our money and our time and our effort towards something that's going to be actually helpful and productive for us. I
Yeah.
think that we deserve that.
Yeah.
And so it's not that we're withholding those things from you. We just want good science for you.
And it feels like I'm just thinking about Instagram ads I see
Hmm.
or YouTube like yeah, ads slash videos I see. It feels like it's this worked for her. And so this will work for you or
Yeah.
me. And there's this like dismissal of our bio uniqueness, our bio individuality, right? Like if I'm not deficient in the thing you're deficient in, or if my body isn't like running the same way your body is, like I'm working with a thyroid issue and you're not working with, like, there's all those
Yeah.
differences that are going to impact, like, we can't just follow all the same formula and get the same results, right?
That is exactly right. Yes. So you talk a little bit about how marketing tricks us sometimes. And
Mhm.
so we hear a lot of anecdotal evidence. That's what that is when it's like, this worked for my sister. And so I started taking it. Now it's working for me. And then you're like, well, that's two people. That's going to work for me too.
Right.
And what we need are empirical studies and kind of evidence-based,
Mhm.
randomized, placebo-controlled
Mhm.
trials that can be applied to a broader population before
Yeah.
we can say, yeah, this is going to work for most women, right? And
Yeah.
then, even on top of that, it takes talking with your doctor about your specific needs and your history, your background, your genetics, your other medical illnesses to see whether it's applicable to you.
Yeah. I totally agree. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking, but the problem is we're too desperate.
Yeah.
Like, working for two people is enough for me because
Yeah.
I'm desperate. And I'm thinking through that desperation. It's like part of it is maybe lack of awareness or understanding
Hmm.
that, like, it's okay for bodies to change, right? Because back to the marketing, everything tells me my body shouldn't be changing. And so if my
Right.
body's changing, then I'm desperate to stop it. Something's got to be wrong. It's me, right? I'm doing something wrong. I'm messing up. I'm failing. So if it worked for her and her sister, I gotta
It's
try
worth a
it,
try. Yeah, it's worth a
right?
try.
Man, I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, what underneath all that? Like, there's something we've got to wrestle with down there.
Yeah. Well, two things. I think that mindset shift is hard.
Mhm.
And so, just like we have learned or are trying to work through the mindset shift that we need to make in diet culture, I think we also need to work on a mindset shift in wellness culture.
Mhm.
And that's hard. And I
Mhm.
don't think that we get there easily or quickly. And I
Mhm.
think we have to just sort of acknowledge those things when we're right in the middle of it. You know, how you can
Right.
kind of pause and just step back for a minute and be like, oh, I think that's diet culture talking.
Mhm.
I think we need to do that with some of those other things too.
Yeah.
And I like to point out that there are real harms to supplements sometimes,
Mhm.
or real harms to taking medications for you that aren't indicated,
Mhm.
and real harms to all natural products sometimes. And
Mhm.
so we have this belief that just because it's this natural thing,
Mhm.
natural, that there wouldn't be side effects to that, or that there wouldn't be real harm to it. But wherever there is the potential for a good outcome, there is the potential for a side effect or real harm. And so we have
Yeah.
seen the incidence of liver failure
Mhm.
rise secondary to supplements. And
Mhm.
so I think we think we're not, it's no big deal. It's worth a try. It worked for
Mhm.
her. I'm desperate. I may as well try it. But
Right.
I do think we have to think about those risks. And is it actually indicated for me? Is it
Right.
safe? Is it effective? I don't want to cause other problems by doing this thing that doesn't have a lot of science behind it.
Yeah.
So I think that mindset shift is where we have to start.
Yeah.
And I'm a physician who's been to medical school and out in practice, and I'm trained in women's health. And I get sucked into those same things sometimes too. I
Yeah.
want a solution as
Right.
well. It is very hard to resist. And I think
Yeah.
it's actually really hard to read what is good science and what is not, because it's
Yeah.
really, they're good at it. They're good
Yeah.
at saying, oh, look at this, it's science backed. So
Right.
science backed is the phrase I think that we hear all the time, and it doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, and back to like diet culture being easy to spot versus wellness culture, right? Like, it's easy to be anti-diet, right? Christy Harrison's
Yeah,
book, anti-diet, like, okay, people can rally around that. But
yeah.
anti-wellness, you can't be anti-wellness. I mean, I think Christy
Mhm.
Harrison's trying, but like that just
Yeah,
doesn't connect, right? Because like everyone wants to be well. Like, you don't
right.
want to diet, but you want to be well. And so it's really uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. And it's sneaky, because
Mhm.
wellness culture is actually often diet culture,
Right.
because wellness culture says that to be well, you should probably be thin.
Yeah.
and that most of your problems will be solved
Right.
if you were just thinner. And
Right.
so why don't you start this diet plan to be well? And so
Right.
it's the same thing with different wording.
Right.
And so I was really opposed to putting wellness in my book. And so I've tried to use words like well-being, like
Hmm.
broader, like I want to be well, but what does that actually
Right.
mean?
Right. Right. It's
And
like health.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
it's what wellness
Yeah.
culture is selling us.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I don't just like one little side note on that. I was just thinking about like YouTube, Instagram influencers. Like I am getting to the point, I think now that I'm 50, I'm like, okay, honey, you're 35. You cannot tell me what it's like. Or men. I'm so sorry. I think that there are fantastic male doctors who probably do understand this fantastically. But dude, you're a 35-year-old guy on Instagram. You're not going to tell me how to hack my hormones because you have no idea what it's like. So that's
Agree.
my little aside there.
Yeah, it's like, why are you selling me stuff for anti-aging when you're like 32 years old? You know, your skin looks great because your skin looks great. You're 32, you know? It's
Right.
so, yeah, I agree. That's so
Yeah,
funny that that's
I
out
saw an
there.
ad for something aging, and the model, she had to have been 20.
Yeah.
Like, what? It's like someone didn't think the whole way through this. But okay, so but as it comes to solutions, right? So, so I do have a little bit more of like the supplements, like, looking for the natural solution
Mhm.
bent to me. And so entering perimenopause, I had heard the scary studies about HRT. And
Right.
I was like, oh, I don't think I would ever do that. Oh yeah. And then do you know Stephanie Reinhold? Dr. Stephanie Reinhold. She's in this space for a while. She's a psychiatrist, but she was talking about food stuff for a while. And I was
Okay.
having
No, I
breakfast with her.
should.
Yeah, I need to connect you to her.
I should
Um,
know her.
so we were having breakfast one time, and she's younger than I am, and she was like, "Well, when I hit perimenopause, I'm doing HRT," and I was like, "What? Like, tell me more." And so I started doing research, and then, like I said, I think last episode, when I stopped sleeping,
Yeah.
I was like, I need something. Like, I cannot handle this. I need answers. And my doctor had already put me on just some progesterone, just to kind of, I think I had shared last episode, I was down to like 19-day cycles. And she was like, let's try this
Mhm.
to kind of see if we can get you back to at least the 20 range. And so I'm already on progesterone. I was like, can we talk about HRT? And she's like, Heather, you're already doing hormone. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that's what it called. I just thought it was progesterone. And so then we talked about estrogen. And in the wellness space, the people I still read, it's like, ooh, danger. There's enough phytoestrogens in the environment. And whatever you do, don't do estrogen. But I started doing some estrogen cream and it's been life changing.
Yeah.
And I know it's different for everyone, but it's an interesting thing for me because I'm like, I am it goes back to trusting our bodies,
Yeah.
right? And trusting our experience because I am on it thinking this makes helps me so much. And then reading someone says, whatever you do, don't do it. And then like kind of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't use it tomorrow. And then like, no, but it helps me. Right. And I don't know. Help me make sense of my my confusion.
Well, I think it's easy to see why women are confused.
Yeah.
It's easy to see why we get so confused because we are told a whole range of things. And you could listen to some influencers who are like, you need to be on estrogen and progesterone the minute you have your first hot flash because it's doing all these things for you. And they're promoting it for prevention. So
Mhm.
that you've got one range of people saying, never take it. It's
Mhm.
dangerous. You're going to get cancer from it. And then the other who are like, every woman should be on hormones when they're in perimenopause because it's going to prevent dementia and things. And so, truly, again, like most things, it falls somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
So, the Women's Health Initiative is what I grew up on learning in early in medical school and in residency. And honestly, I was a little afraid of what was called hormone replacement therapy when I was first down in practice because that Women's Health Initiative stopped early because they were finding cancer and things like that. It's important to note that that was a huge study. And I think we've heard people say we've debunked it, and
Mhm.
that isn't really true either. We actually use a lot of the information from that study still. We use a lot of the statistics and things from that study, but we've sort of reinterpreted the results a little
Okay.
bit. And so it's not completely a bad study, like, oh, that was a mistake, right? It's not a bad study, but we've reinterpreted the results and we have found that the risk is much less than we thought. And for women who are within 10 years of their period and having symptoms, what we now call menopause hormone therapy
Mhm.
is actually quite safe for most women. There are people who still cannot take it. And so if you had an estrogen receptor positive breast cancer or something, you may be precluded from that, or there are other risks to consider. So it's always a conversation to have with your doctor, but I don't think you have to rule it out completely. Have the
Mhm.
conversation. And it's important to know that you can take it orally, you can take it transdermally, meaning through the skin, you can use a topical vaginal cream. There are so many different forms that you could try, and each one has a little bit different risk profile. So
Mhm.
that's important too. I like explaining why we don't call it hormone replacement
Okay.
therapy anymore,
Yeah.
and we call it menopause hormone therapy. So I think hormone replacement therapy kind of makes us think that we're replacing hormones back to where they were before we started going through menopause, that like our ovaries are defective, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. We're going to replace it back to where it was. Kind of like we do with the thyroid, right? When your
Mhm.
thyroid is low, we try to get back to this normal range. But with menopause hormone therapy, they're exactly the same thing. They just have a new name. It's saying you are going through your menopause transition. You may be having some symptoms from that, things like hot flashes, your irregular periods, night sweats, all of that. And we want to give you hormone therapy to help you with those symptoms that you're having in this very inevitable transition. You're going to go through menopause. Your hormones are going to be different when you come out the other side. And let's help you with your symptoms during that time. I think that's an important mindset shift
Yeah.
that many women need to make.
So if I stop in 10 years, then will I go through menopause again? Like, how does that work? Because by the
Yeah,
time I stop, I won't have anything left. So what
right.
happens with that?
Typically, no, because we are replacing you with much less
Okay.
than what you had when you were having regular periods in your reproductive years.
So
And so
kind of
that's kind of
weaning.
the idea. Yeah, it's like we're weaning. We're just
Okay.
helping with those symptoms. And then, yes, you can stop. And deciding when to stop is another conversation to have with your doctor.
Mhm.
It's unlikely that you're going to need to be on something in your later 70s, 80s. The good news is that so many of those symptoms that we experience early on in perimenopause and through those transition years actually do improve.
Yeah.
So there have actually been studies to show the brain fog improves, that fatigue improves. There is kind of a light on the other side.
Yeah. I love that. And I just want to kind of tie this back to body image issues
Hmm.
because I think for women in perimenopause, right? Like back to what diet culture, wellness culture is selling us. If I go into it believing if I was just 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, 70 pounds thinner, whatever it is, then I wouldn't have a problem with my sleep or like a low libido or whatever the case may be, right? I wouldn't have any of these symptoms if my weight was X. To just recognize, or maybe it's just perimenopause, right?
Maybe it's the hormones. I loved when you emailed me and said, "Hey, do you want to come back on?" Your little blurb, your sentence that you sent me, I thought, well, that is so beautiful. I think you said something like very real changes that we will live through and grieve, even.
Mm, yeah.
And then we come back out the other side and sort of realizing that our body's always been a fix it project. And
Mm,
we've been told that it is one. And
mhm,
we've been told that someone has the solution to it,
mhm,
if we would just get it right, or we would
mhm,
work harder, or we wouldn't be so lazy, or whatever it is, right? It's always like our fault,
mhm.
sort of. And so it is natural that in perimenopause, we still sort of feel like our body is a fix-it
Mm,
project. And again, here come all the supplements and all the compounded hormones and these diet plans and all these things to say, you don't actually have to go through perimenopause.
mm,
That's crazy talk. You can just do all these things and you're going to feel great. You feel like you're
mm,
30. And I think to just have like a little realism about that
mhm.
and say these are inevitable changes and there are some really tough ones and it's hard.
Yeah.
But don't make it a fix it project. Just like
Yeah.
treat your symptoms and be a little more
Right.
gentle with yourself through this time. And yes, there are some things we can do to treat specific symptoms or to sort of help our well-being.
Mm,
But it doesn't have to be, if you're feeling any symptoms, you're doing it wrong, right? I
yeah.
think that's the mindset shift. So I loved how you worded that. And I think there is a little grieving process that goes on. And it's hard. It's hard to
Mm,
be different at 45 than I was when I was
mhm,
32. And it doesn't feel good. And yet there's
mm.
so much beauty to it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Giving ourselves the space to age in a culture that doesn't really esteem aging,
Yeah,
right? It defies, denies, fights aging. And yet we're all, I mean, the
we're
alternative is
aging.
death. So
Yeah,
you're gonna face it or not, but you're gonna face it if you're still breathing. Yeah. And and I think also, I mean, as a doctor, maybe you can even give some more words to this, but the Fix It project you mentioned, right? But I think we have this underlying belief, maybe especially as Americans, that like optimal health like is attainable like
yeah.
forever, right? That if you are doing all the right things, your body will be optimally healthy for, and like you said, it's a formula, but like that
Mhm.
that optimal health is the baseline that everyone can get to.
Right. Kind of forgetting about genetics, family history, socioeconomic influence, and how you grew up, and I mean, just your current stressors, and just sometimes like really bad luck. I
Mhm.
think about sometimes just the way that the culture is, and then you're the woman who gets some. I'm so lucky because I'm healthy so far, but like some illness comes to you, a chronic illness, some autoimmune disease, or a cancer or just whatever it might be. And then to think you did that to yourself. It
Mhm.
was something that you did. You weren't eating
Right.
right or you weren't, following the formula. And so, of course, you're sick. It's kind of this weird, I think we all have that idea. The
Mhm.
reason that person has heart issues is because of this, and this.
Right.
Instead of just acknowledging like the body's actually a little bit fragile and there are so many
Mhm.
things we can't control.
Yeah.
Um, I think we need to offer some grace for that. And if you are someone who struggles with chronic illness, you didn't do anything wrong,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And even if there are some things that you could improve, I don't know, we just kind of equate it with like you're a bad person or
Right.
something. And
Right.
to already be sick and struggling and not feeling well, and then to
Right.
feel like there's this fault or shame to it on top
Yeah.
of that, it's got to feel awful.
Yeah, I actually was in a conversation with a group of women not too long ago. And, a woman who had a larger body shared openly with as a church group that she had cancer again. And the
Mhm.
people around her were telling her it's her fault because she didn't lose the weight, or shouldn't she try this diet, or shouldn't she try that diet. Now, needless to say, she had a history of cancer. She was a refugee would come from a war-torn country over. I mean, like the stress, like like single mom, like so much stress that she was carrying, so heavy. And to have Christian women speaking into her life, well, she should have just, gone on a diet to not get cancer. Oh, it just broke my heart. It's trying to encourage her, but it is so much more complex than the diet culture, wellness culture wants us to believe it is.
That's true. And I think that's, in my new book that's out, Everything I Wish I Could Tell You About Midlife, the subtitle is In the Body You Actually Have.
Yeah.
Because it's the body you have. You didn't
Mhm.
choose it. You can't change it. Your genetics are your genetics. Your DNA is your DNA. Your
Yeah.
family history is your family history. And many of the things that happened to you in years past that you were just sort of, you were a passive person in that. There are so
Mhm.
many things that you can't control. And so how do we take care of the body we actually have?
Yeah.
Um, I think that's where we need the mindset shift. And I hope that we can shift it for others as well. I know that, like, that word privilege is kind of one that people cringe at a little bit, but maybe you've talked about the idea of like thin privilege
Mhm.
before. I think there's health privilege.
Mhm.
And to imagine that it's because you've done everything right,
Mhm.
it's because you've been following the formula that you happen
Mhm.
to be a healthy person right now. Um, gosh, I wish we could change that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Okay, let's end with some hope.
Okay.
So we make it through menopause. You and I aren't there all the way yet, but we're 60, 65, 70. And we were chatting a little bit before we pressed record. Like it does feel like women at those ages maybe tend to just, I don't know, have a little bit more of a carefree attitude around some
Yeah.
of these things. Like what have you seen?
I think that what those women are maybe really good at, or maybe we finally learn this bit of acceptance
Mhm.
and we sort of learn our own humanity and also come a little bit more face to face with mortality. And we learn to just let go of these things that don't matter or that we don't have a lot of control over. Because I do think that women in their later years find a lot of freedom. And there have been studies to show that those are happier years, that our
Mhm.
most stressed and unhappy years are kind of in this middle time. And
Mhm.
then we come out the other end. And I'm sure that there has been some pain and some grieving to get us there, and perhaps some loss.
Mhm.
Um, I do think there is hope for us. I would love to help women to find that a little bit sooner. And how
Mhm.
can we learn to adopt that mindset a little bit sooner so that we don't feel like we have to suffer through perimenopause and this midlife time?
Yeah. Well, and even before, right? Because
Even before.
acceptance is one of the stages of grief,
Yes.
right? And so like one of the things we do in coaching with body image clients is we talk about grieving this ideal image. And
Yeah,
I mean, and we can talk about that with a 22-year-old, right? Like if you can just
sure.
put to death, I mean, because that's really what it is, put to death this like image that I have got to be perfect. And that means looking like this and acting like this is my perfect life. If you can just put that to death and really just surrendering it to the Lord, like, what do you have for me? Right? And putting it to death requires grieving.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of that is acceptance. Like, what a way to live with just an open-handedness of, okay, God, what do you have for me? And like to your subtitle, right? In this body I have, what do you have in store for me? Like what, like I don't want to spend my life trying to fix my body. I don't want to like waste my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that
Right.
would be, and maybe one of my life's great regrets, because I do still struggle myself. I come
Mhm.
back to it and think, gosh, I got to stop. I think that's the other thing. So I'm a little bit enmeshed in the recovery movement. My
Mhm.
husband is a recovering drug and alcohol addict. He's been clean and sober 15 years. So Al Anon was this big light for me during that time when he was actively using. And so much of that terminology, I think, and the idea of letting go, and they
Yeah.
use the idea of a higher power, but giving it over and just saying they actually can't control this.
Mm.
And so I speak about control for a chapter in my book and just call it the control filter, and really looking at, okay, what are the things here that I can control,
Mhm.
and then what are the things that I can't? And so those things that we can control are, we can decide to take menopausal hormone therapy or other treatments to help us through. We don't have to suffer. It's not, we're handing it all over. There are some things available to us. And there are a lot of things we can't control. And so in those instances, I think acceptance is the best option. right? And I've also learned in the recovery movement that that's not a one and done decision,
Mm.
and that again, you're not doing it wrong. If you find yourself having those thoughts again, or seeing an ad, or this is the big one for me, going out with a group of friends and sort of looking around and suddenly getting back to that self-critical
Mm.
voice, I think it's just a realization that, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm doing
Yeah.
that thing again. I know this. I've been here before. And sort of recognizing it and then getting back to that acceptance or having to hand it over again.
Right.
So I do think that it's okay to have to keep working at that
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And to tie a nice big bow on it, especially if that acceptance challenge happens the week before your period starts every month, right?
Yes, yes. And to just acknowledge that that's where you're at. And what is so funny is, I think if you ever put words to that with those women, they're like, oh, yeah, me too. Or, I mean, we're
Yeah.
all so much the same and so similar in those thoughts. And we sort of always believe we're the only ones who are a little
Right.
crazy or thinking like that, or why am I like this? But it's actually all of us.
Yeah. Agree. Oh, this has been so good. Thank you so much. Dr. Michaela Albertson, tell us all where we can get your book and where we can connect with you.
Yes. So everything I wish I could tell you about midlife, A Woman's Guide to Health in the Body You Actually Have, came out in October. And it's available really anywhere books are sold. So you can find it on Amazon. It was released through Baker Book or Bethany House Publishing. So if you would go to bakerbookhouse.com, it will be on sale there. They always have it a little cheaper at the publisher. So really anywhere you're looking for books, you can order it. And I'm over at michaelaalbertsonmd.com. I love to write about women's health, but I equally love to talk about all the other parts of midlife that come along with it. And so we are always kind of struggling through those things at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Perimenopause, our bodies, and teenagers, and midlife marriages, and friendships, and all the things. So I love to just put words to that, and I'd love to see people over there.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching or listening today. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye bye.